right, good afternoon, peoples. Bruce here with Targeted Wealth Creation. I've got an update on REX shares. So the newer fund, Sepy, is reporting or declaring a day earlier than FEPI and API. FEPI being the FANG Innovation, API being the AI Equity Premium. And Sepy is interesting. It's definitely crypto related, but there's a few payment systems that are what I call normal block. Um, so let's look at the distribution. So sorry, this is not done right. This should be, um, here we go. I don't know why I've got, it's just what I never mind, but I made this static. So ignore the, I'll fix that, but not during this. So ignore the FEPI here. I'm only talking about CEPI. I'll make sure that it doesn't cover that. So what did FEPI do in its second payment? $1.57, almost $1.58. So annualized yield with the updated price of 45.23, it's dropped with its $1.69 here at much higher price. Now look, this thing launched, again, someone could say terrible timing on 12/4/24. So it wasn't that long ago, right? A little over 2 months, 83 days. So the launch price was 51.13. We're now at 45.23, down people's $3.22. So it's yielding 41.86 with the 45.23 close on Monday the 24th. All right. So how does that stack up? What are the long-term results? Well, not that great. Again, not always good timing. I'm not here saying it's a terrible fund. I'm just saying what's been happening in the markets lately. So let's look at a summarized um, activity here. Not positive. Here's your 83 days owned. By the way, even though I'm showing 456 days since inception, when I annualize, I'm only using 365. So don't, these annualized numbers are good to go. Now, the only negative for a new fund, when this one has 266 days, right? The API and FEPI has 456. So these have consistent time. This newbie is still annualizing. That's why you want to see how it stacks up. Over here, the dividend return looks puny, right? 83 days, you've collected $3.28, which is all of two distributions, right? Two payments. So you look weak. That's why you go to your annualized number. But look over here. This is brutal. Gain loss annualized. That would be a 50 because of the big drop. It's at 45.23 right now. At inception on 12/4/24 was 51.13. So we're talking about a big annualized loss, right? While it's only 11.54, look at FANG. So again, always timing on all these things. Go look at charts. Now, while the bad news is out and away for Sepy, I've got a video I want to put together. The topping signals that I see from some of my subscriptions, from some of the private groups I'm in, March does not look to be a good month. I hope I'm wrong. Again, I probably have about a 75 or 80% accuracy rate when I look into some of these things. And I don't always trade that, but I just want to share with you there's some signs in the market that in some of the more popular things we're appear to be topping. I realistically Even seeing my gold and silver and precious metal miners going down for because some of you guys love that area and I haven't put videos out on it. I'm waiting to see how it does when the market turns down. I fully expect them to sell off if this March, you know, movement down materializes as I see it. So we shall see, right? I never come out and say run out and sell everything. So just be aware, and this is in particularly sensitive for you heavy margin guys. I don't have a lot in my base, but they do exist in the high yield act, dividends. Anybody that hasn't saw my tax video, I think that's apropos for what's going on at tax time and everything else. There's some nuggets in there, some things I even learned when I did the research. So let's take a look here. The only thing I'll go over um, is the holdings because these things get updated. And what I mean by that is they're always changing their holdings. So one of the things you want to know is the percentage held of assets, right? So cash being good, they're holding out, 6.5, 7%. And then you look at Micron. Well, Micron is a semiconductor, NVIDIA, AI chips, right? um, AMD. How did Nvidia do yesterday? Well, I know many. The averages weren't down massively. Yeah, it's down 3%. Now, the key here, people, Nvidia reports on Wednesday after the market closed. So pay particularly close attention to that. I've seen on my macro look that this last week of February is probably the high, and we probably won't exceed whatever day that ends up being, we won't exceed that in March. So that's what I mean by a downdraft in March. And we'll probably pick back up later in April. I'm not talking about a crash, people. I'm just talking it could be a 5 or 10% pullback. So if you're out there heavily margin, be aware that those things can happen at any point in time. I hope it doesn't. I really hope I'm wrong, but the signals I'm getting are pretty strong. So AMD, another chip, right? So these guys are sensitive to that. Longer term, what do I see? Again, you guys know that I'm looking at commodity-based things to do well. The gold and silver and precious metals miners with the price of the metals. I expect silver to go to $50 this year. Gold probably 3,100, maybe 33. Doesn't mean that gold won't get whacked if we go down in March. It very well could go back to 2,600, probably just 2,800. But do we make this final push to 3,000 right here and then have March wash us out? But the thing to look for is these undervalued sectors, which clearly the metals and miners are. Like I said, I need a whole long video, probably an hour long video on what's happening there and what value. I'm just waiting for some additional signals. I know that gold itself has stayed strong. These miners are probably as undervalued as I've ever seen. Newmont blew out their earnings, went nowhere. It's just sentiment, guys. So let's go through payment systems, Visa, retail broker, Robinhood, payment system, MasterCard. You guys all know that. Riot, Bitcoin miner, MicroStrategy, right? So nobody is doing particularly great. What did MicroStrategy do? Yeah, it's down 5.5. So, and I'm sure that BTC was down some. Tesla, again, is down. I actually picked up some Tesla yesterday around 1072 in the earlier part of the trading day, just because I think it's got a decent yield and I like what Ian is doing. Um, Mr. Musk is actually doing long term, especially with the robotic and next gen. Yeah, this year may be tough in the auto industry. We'll see how all these tariffs play out. New holdings, okay? What I did was I put some comments in here so you guys, some of these I know I don't even need to put comments. Some of it, excuse me, I'm making sure. Digital banking platform, spell that wrong, typo, in Latin America. Interesting that, that's kind of an AI, digital BTC oriented. I noticed a heavy payment system. Taiwan Semi, that's certainly not crypto, although they're out there on the leading edge of the chips. Marathon Digital, Coinbase, PayPal, the names you guys know, CleanSpark, Iron, right? Next gen data centers. I thought that's just what this was, but I looked it up. Interactive brokers, quite popular. A good broker. Block, right? You have a hood in here already. Core Scientific, Energy Infrastructure, TerraWolf, Fiserv, Financial, uh, Rambus, been around a long time. Chip Interface Technologies, that's in the semiconductor space. Applied Digital, again, operates data centers. You saw some news that Microsoft is cutting back on some of its plans. So we'll see what this whole deep sea, what it's doing. It really knocked everything down for a while. I'm still, guys, by the way, I'm still pretty positive on Palantir. I see this stuff that, look, the US is looking into fraud. The government, I'd love to see us stay with a walk soft, carry a big stick, right? The old time saying. I think that's where Trump stands as opposed to the neocons on both sides of the aisle. Guys, there's Democratic strong neocons, there's Republican neocons, these guys that just want war. But I'll tell you what, if this stuff continues to work with Doge and everything, we're going to root out a lot of the fraud. I know this isn't a political statement, and I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't understand how anybody can say it's not a good idea that we balance the budget. If we don't balance the budget, we're in big, big trouble. We're already at 37 trillion, guys, and the interest is just too much money. So I don't understand people that just say, I get it that you don't want your government to take control and everybody worries they're going to knock out our Social Security. But then you'd have mass riots on the hands from people. So Bit Digital. So anyway, some of my thoughts, guys. Um, I'm not saying bad. I'm just saying be careful here. You're setting on a total return of 22%. It's early. And you guys all know that, excuse me, when FOMO gets going and momentum, it's great. But you got to be prepared on the other side. I mean, we're in such a volatile market. You'll see crypto up 4% one day and down 4 the next. You'll see, the Dow Jones Industrial doesn't do that, but you'll see an S&P and a Nasdaq 100. They'll move 1, 2, 3% on big days, and they'll go up one day and down. And a lot of times it's algos. I mean, on Friday, it was all about algos getting the calls back in. You get massive calls on the NASDAQ 100 and the SPY and that kind of stuff. And these guys, the institutional money who's selling that to retail and guys are buying calls, I call it manipulation. It is market manipulation to some degree by the institutional guys. They'll push out some kind of news. So just be aware of that. Algo trading is so, so big. You try and have a long term picture. Like I said, I'm still very positive on Palantir. So I picked up some Palantir yesterday. I also picked up some PLTY at 70.55 that I had already set that in. So some of the things that I really like, and I advise you guys, if you really like this and you believe in AI and a lot of this stuff, then you're going to be fine over time. So try to use that. And you guys that are investing for 10, 20, 30 years, you're 20 or 30 years old, just DCA, put this stuff in, and you'll be just fine. But you guys that are just trying, you've got 6 years to retirement, you've got money in savings, and you're following some of these guys that are saying, hey, borrow on margin. If you're a newbie doing that and don't fully understand it, you can get wiped out. So I always say caution. If you're smart, you understand it, you've been doing margin for years, hey, more power to you. It's just like in the real estate cycle. Guys that look and say, hey, I think, the market's going up. But speaking of that, where do I see real estate? I don't see it doing well. Washington, D.C. is a perfect example. Now that they're being hit, they're down 20%, the average price. Okay. But you always, when you have administration changes, you've always had a huge thing there. When the Democrats win or the Republicans win, that part is normal. You have a whole bunch of people leaving, a whole bunch of new people coming out. But when it's based on fraud and you just have a lot of money flowing into an area and all of a sudden that spigot's cut off, which is good for us taxpayers. I'd love to see us get a big return. If they didn't and they just used the money to pay down the debt, I'm okay with that because I don't have to have that. But I feel sorry for lower income people that are still working and paying into the system. And I want Social Security to be there for people for 30 or 40 years. And the only way this Medicare and Social Security is to get the fraud out. Sorry, guys, about the rant, but I just think it's time that I say what I feel. If people don't like it and I lose subscribers, so be it. Okay. But if we don't, we're going to have a country that people aren't going to want to live in. All right, guys, that's Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. That's my rant. This is the update on Sepy. I'll be back tomorrow with Feppy and Appy. I don't know why they do them a day late or whatever, but that's what it is. All right, guys, not financial advice, for fun and entertainment. Have a great one. Hit me up with questions you have on other things. I'm always trying to read that and respond. Thanks, guys. Bye for now.